Well, I want to take some space to for people to discuss what's going on in their practice and to take stock about where we are in terms of our process as a group. And I mean, we're working with a lot of things, and I don't want them to become intellectualized. I want them to. There's no wrong experience that anybody can have. You know, that you can't be wrong. It's your experience. We're working in a very defined way, trying to, in one sense, narrow the focus to the breath, because through mastery of breath and understanding breath, we can reach all of these other realms, the realm of psychic power, the realm of attuning to the master saints and prophets and so forth. You name it, you can use the breath as the vehicle. It's all because everything is interconnected, and because breath lies at one of those central foci of interconnection, you can use it as a vehicle for engaging all of the aspects of mastery in the spiritual path. And all of us have areas where we can develop more. And I'm trying to emphasize here the fundamental stages of to be able to come in the midst of everyday activity and bring the breath into a condition that is going to be appropriate for that activity. So I'm really interested if we could have a little discussion and not I mean, if certain things aren't working or wherever you're at in terms of that, to bring it up, because it helps to know. I mean, for example, this process that we're engaged in, we said, okay, people commit for 3 months, and then we'll see where we stand after that. I mean, I'm committed for a year, but so I mean, that's another thing. I mean, here we are at the end of 3 months, and we're going to go forward, or some of us will, but it's kind of like you have to renew a sense of commitment for the process, and there's no judgment here. I mean, this is an unending caravan of our soul's development, lifetime after lifetime, sphere after sphere, however you want to look at it. I hope to continue to do better myself in every way in relation to this process. But I'm happy to have you to work with, because it helps me too to really focus. And but I talk a lot, and I'd like to hear what you have to say. Yeah.
I was doing my healing breath last week, and I really felt it. I really felt the love in it. It actually healed my heart. And I put that in my journal because the last time I had that experience with my healing breath was in 2011, where I actually felt it healing me. And it became real. It wasn't, sometimes when I feel my breath coming through, I feel something, but I can't identify it. That time I identified with it. Mm-hmm. It was real healing, love coming through my heart.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for sharing that, Shankar. It doesn't have to be testimonial, so I mean, that's welcome. I mean, or what you wrote in your journal, that's interesting too. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been feeling a solid base when a lot of fungus comes up, and so I feel very grounded. And also, at first I felt the choppiness of my breath, wavy, kind of short, and then I feel my breath settling down really deep, and breathing deep. And when I wake up in the morning, I feel this choppy breath, and I haven't been able to source it. You know, it could be a dream or something. And in my work, I feel something very interesting. It's like I'm not working with someone. It's like there's this oneness in there. So I think that has a lot to do with the breath practices, whatever, concentrations.
Mhm. Yeah.
For me, the practices feel more almost like an aspiration than an attainment yet. And where I particularly feel it is in my everyday life. I mean, being in a space like this and doing the practices that we just did, that feels easy. But in my everyday life, it feels sort of untranslated. And it's odd because I feel like I can attune to things fairly easily, and yet my breath doesn't feel like the bass that you were describing, and that kind of steadiness yet. I mean, it's what I'm aspiring to, but I don't feel like I have it yet. There are moments where the breath feels more equal and so on, but so.
Well, my feedback is you have a lot of the air quality, and that means that your breath is going to be zigzag. It's going to move around a lot, and for you to come into balance in terms of everyday life, you're going to have to impose more of a rhythm on it sometimes. You know, I mean, more often than maybe somebody else whose breath, you know, I mean, they find in the course of the day when they check in with it is much more in a steadier rhythm. But whenever you notice it, whenever you check in with it, and you notice it, it is in that zigzaggy thing that is not serving you in that particular. Some things, you know, I mean, inspirational, you know, I mean, that sort of thing, sphere, it can be very serviceable. The air, but first, there are two ways to approach it. One is the practice of drawing the ether into the air element, and really consciously, and the other is to, as I said first, okay, I'm going to just establish a rhythm here, you know, and you know, and you just, and then you establish a rhythm that you feel will better serve your interaction in this circumstance, and then you keep checking in with it more periodically to make sure that you're still establishing it while you're doing that, and you know, because it's just bringing the. But what we're doing at another level in your process is bringing the elements into more balance, and I'm curious if people have tried this method of that we're with the bringing the ether into each one of the elements in the middle of life. Sundari, you wanted to say?
Well, I don't know about the second part, bringing it into each of the elements.
Uh-huh.
I had a series of things that happened like in the middle of the night where I woke up in pain, and it just occurred to me to bring the ether element in, and so just sort of watching my energy through the whole process of dealing with it, and then kind of settling into that. And the first time, there was an amazing sense of compassion that I had really never felt for myself before. And the second time, there was like a separation of energies, like a really coarse energy and a really refined energy, and I could not like resolve them. It was just so incredibly disparate that I had to just like let go of it.
The second time you woke up, is that what you're saying?
Yes,
Uh-huh.
because the heavy, the coarser energy was stronger, and it like won.
Yeah.
and then another time, it just evened everything out so smoothly that I just like drifted. Like I could feel myself going back to sleep in complete peace.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Anyone else with any of those kinds of observation, whether those kinds are, I mean, with the elements in ether, or anything else that has come up for you, maybe as an obstacle or as an interesting experience? Yeah.
Yeah, I've been interested in how easy it was for me to notice where my breath was in my nostrils, whether it was Jalal or Jamal. Maybe because I had a sinus condition, I don't know. But I was amazed at how consistent it was with my mood. When I was in an active mood, I noticed distinctly it was in my right nostril. And when I was in a more passive or receptive mode, I noticed distinctly that it was in my left nostril. And one time when I wanted to be more active and I felt more passive and I noticed it was in my left nostril, I tried breathing in my right nostril, and I'm not sure that it helped. I'm going to try that again. That's an experiment I want to repeat, so I'm playing with that.
There are two ways to approach it, of course. One is if you notice your breath is in a particular condition, to do things that are harmonious with that condition, and the other is if you notice your breath is in a certain condition and you want to do something that requires it to be in a different condition, which isn't so easily harmonious with that condition, then you can change your breath accordingly. And we're going to take up some practices, a Sufi lineage breath practice of kasab. I gave the first sort of stage of it, just getting aware of the left nostril breathing, the right nostril breathing, feeling, whereas did breathe out 10 through the left nostril and in through the left nostril, and similarly with the right, and then, but we're going to do this other practice that will also help you in balancing the Jalal and the Jamal. Yeah.
Question about balanced breath, like counts of the breath. Because I know there are some instances where you're having a longer inhalation or exhalation. And I found, practically, if I'm walking up the hill, then maybe instead of 4-4, maybe I'm doing 5 on the inhale, Allahu Akbar, and 3 on the exhale, GIB-1, or something like that. And it helps me get up the hill, and if I'm going down, maybe these converse, maybe 5 on the exhalation, 3 on the inhalation.
Mm-hmm.
So there are times when maybe the balance or count is not always necessary.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely, because you're rising. You're definitely trying to arise, so you want to arouse the rouge or the inhalation, So it's natural when you would be engaged in rising to do that, and similarly when you're engaged in descending to increase the nasul or the.
Yeah, it just makes sense because most of the day, it's more balanced, but there are some in a hilly city I noticed.
Well, certainly in the midst of activity. I mean, swimming, running. Any kind of activity. I mean, your breath is going to change. But in the midst of usual types of activity, it's good to find a balance in the midst of that.
Comment or observation. We discussed it when we're doing our group practices and feedback, and everybody seemed to have less of a connection with the Yaraqib wazifa. And I was thinking, well, it could be because we're rushing it and not doing the keeb part, the long second syllable. But for some reason, that's just something that several people mentioned they were having trouble, connecting with that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if, you had any suggestions that might be helpful. Do it anyway. Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah, it's bigger than you, so open it up. How hard is that?
Well, I mean, that's a good suggestion. I mean, that's yasabur. I mean, that's staying with it. I mean, the important thing, I mean, is to be open to it. To be open to the activity of the wazifa. The wazifa, you know, can be a tremendous help in purifying the breath and in clearing the heart and in allowing us to come into to deal with the places that we are, you know, out of our, you know, self-pity. I mean, when we're caught in self-pity, we're in that slavery of wanting sympathy. Oh, come on, give me some. I deserve some more sympathy, please. I need more sympathy. I'm in self-pity here, and I'm a captive of it. You know, so we need a way to approach it without, you know, you can't bludgeon yourself into it. You know, I mean, you can say, okay, I'm going to continue to do this practice because I know I have resistance to it, and you know, but it's been given to me with, I understand the reason it's given to me is for the benefit of me awakening my heart's interest in concentration and you know, and being present. You know, I want to awaken my caring interest in this meditation that's coming up. I don't want to just have my thoughts wandering. So this is it's connected with muraqabah. Raqib is the central word for muraqabah, which means concentration. So it's the quality that is essential for concentration. Brings one-pointedness, brings connected, caring energy. You know, but you know, we can say the most powerful mantras and be pretty much unmoved by them because we have a lot of resistance to them. You know, something inside of us is resisting. And so that's where the wazifas really come in, because they address as the shadow of that quality. What is it in me that has been wounded by love and doesn't want to feel, is not so ready to be open and connecting because it leads to being wounded. And so then what we can do is when we engage that, then we can, if we want wholeness, you know, we can then draw that wazifa sound into that place. And there are different ways of doing it, whether you do it fast or slow. Because I wanted to address a little bit the use of wazifas, because they're said. That's why we dance and why we do these other things while we're working with the breath, because to get into a prayerful state, to feel devotion, to feel gratitude, to be in harmony with music and each other, this all has such a good influence on widening the range of our ability to connect. We come in and we tend to be inside of our own shell, and then gradually we include others more naturally, and then we can include more spheres of also, but we keep getting drawn back to the places where we have resistance, and so that's why I said, okay, I want to work with a group that wants to go forward for a period of time, you know, so that we don't just get a hit of something and then fall back into habits, but where you try and maintain a rhythm, even if, you know, some of the things are difficult. Hey, 33 repetitions of Ya Raqib goes by pretty fast. You know, so, I mean, and if your heart is awakened one repetition, you know, there's a story, a Hindu story of where the one fellow was so proud because he was always, you know, thinking of Vishnu, and so the God says to him, okay, he says, who's your greatest devotee? And he says, oh, the sons of this farmer. He says, why? He says, I've been observing him, and he says, and when he gets up in the morning, he's, you know, he says, Ram, 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 and then he goes about his business, and then in the end of the day, he does the same thing. And he says, he says, I'm remembering you all day long. He says, yeah, he says, but, you know, he's remembering. You know, but for those of us that, you know, I know for myself, on a long retreat, I'm much better than on a short retreat. I know many repetitions of practice serve me better than just a few. And part of it is because of my denseness, you know, but I'm stubborn, you know, so you know, and I'm trying to draw in, you know, what I mean to say is, it takes me a while to draw in all the atoms of my interest into an integrated whole. And then one can keep going. So, I mean, maybe, you know, an icon said with people that aren't, that have a lot of resistance, they should have more practices, you know. But, you know, that's in the ideal realm. In the real realm, they're not going to do them, you know. But it's true, you know, if you have a lot of resistance and you're doing a powerful practice that you have received with blessing, you know, it will have an effect over time, even against a lot of resistance. Because you keep up the rhythm of it, it will have an effect over time. Not as great an effect as it would have if you're really present for it. If you can become fully present for it, then it works a lot faster. Yeah.
So it's kind of following up what he was asking. So if there's, whether it's resistance to a particular wazifa or you have a wazifa that does bring you into the heart space. So going with the one that you struggle with or going with the one that puts you there more easily and keeps you there.
Well, you go with the one that keeps you there, but, you know, just still do 33 repetitions of Yaraki, because that keeps the faith of the practice, you know, that holds the integrity of us, of our work together. But, you know, I mean, it's not like I'm asking you to do that, you know, a lot, you know. But sure, you got to go with what is going to awaken your, you know, whatever it takes to awaken the interest of your heart and make you one-pointed. That's what we want to bring to our meditation. That's what we want to bring to life. So that's the big answer. The little answer is, you know, by staying together on this, we help each other and ourselves. Just because there's something about following through that brings a great success to us. Yeah. Wait, you had something.
Well, yeah, I just want to say thank you for doing this. It feels like good timing for me to have these practices and to be with myself in this work. I think for many years I was just working with the breath. I've done other types of things, and now I feel really open to it. I had a lot of like openings, like everything seemed suddenly more, my intuition, my ability to pay attention, to see what was happening all around me in my life, all throughout the day, opened up to the point where I just went, oh, this is, and I just kind of took a break. And I just keep stepping back in over the last month with different practices. I had a resistance to the Ikhlas Surah that I didn't understand at first, and now I can say it, you know, while I'm driving, and I love it. I learned the English and then sort of felt into the language of it, because for me it's understanding what it is I'm stepping into, and I don't know if this is true or not. So I realized I needed to ask some questions. So for me, the breath is this connection to myself and to the consciousness is the way, and to that energetic. As I'm breathing, I become more open to that. And not so much open, just know that I'm already connected to that. And so when you talk about magnetism, that's sort of what I'm thinking that could be. So other than I'm just roundabout saying I'm excited about doing work. I also find that it is bringing some balance to my day-to-day life, all the different practices. I'm enjoying the fact that I'm doing this with a group. And I've already noticed within the 2 months that I've had some progress. And I'm happy to be doing it. So and I will continue. The 9 months now seems really worthwhile. Very worthwhile. So thank you. And thank everybody here for doing the practice.
Yeah, Hayat, you wanted to say something before?
Yeah, I had what seemed like an amazing experience yesterday. I was catching up on the video from the last session, and I was listening to the your element talk at the end with the ether qualities, and I was really into breath at that point. And I realized a phone call had come, and I was just continuing with the practice. And then my husband came out with some difficult news from his doctor, and I was thinking about it, what happened in the next hour. The breath stayed there. You know, I wrote about it in my journal. It was amazing to me that breath that I had been deeply into when this news came just maintained through this next hour, where we, looked at it, held each other, and then, did what we needed to do.
Well, thank you.
I thank you. Yes,
Thanks so
it's a
much.
precious class you're teaching. So much appreciate being part of it.
Well, I'm glad. That's a beautiful report. Thank you. Ms. Amity, you want to say something?
Yeah, I struggled.
Yeah.
And part of it's just with my work, and I'm seeing some insights from that side. And then I got to a real place of being in a funk, and I decided, okay, I'm going to run at the track anyway, and whether it's 1 round or the 2 or miles or whatever. So what was interesting about it was when I first started, this woman shows up with her dog. This boxer, and the boxer just goes right for me, and like, I'm basically running and asking her to deal with her dog, and she's like, oh, he's not running. And so some other guy shows up, and it's almost like a dream sequence, that shows up and says, so you really shouldn't have your dog at the track, And so she's leaving, and I'm running by her, and I said, I got bitten by a dog when I was running, and she goes, wah, 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 And so I had my mind in this whole place, so I started, so I'm running in my breath, and I'm going, okay, well, can I just instead of having to reply to this woman 10,000 different ways while I run, can I work on my breath? So, it's not the easiest thing in the world, it's like, well, I should have said, it's like that whole thing. But anyway, I worked on it, and so maybe that helped me. But at the end, some places where I felt really, I felt like I'd really blown it, this, that, and the other, not in terms of that, but just some deadlines and some things. It's just like I was in a really even state, and I just looked at things very quickly and saw, okay, well, you can do this, and move on. So, and it's somewhat what you were saying in terms of you get your breath to a certain place, and then qualities of wisdom or being able to more clearly assess what's happening can arise even, let's say. So I feel encouraged that whole process of finding a breath that has a certain quality of steadiness and evenness is something to aspire to and to work with as a place where life can become more full and balanced.
Well, I'm glad to get the feedback. And I'm really not just looking for positive feedback at all, because we work with what we struggle with, and right in the middle of our struggle, just like what Nazamuddin just expressed, comes the breakthrough. Often if it's just plateaued, in a kind of comfortable way, that's. We don't get a breakthrough. Yeah.
I have trouble recognizing the space I'm in. Right now, my heart's really expanding, And the only thing that's really positive I feel is I'm not thinking a lot,
Mhm.
which is very unusual for me. And then, but I feel something there moving, and I say, gee, that feels, it doesn't feel bad. I don't know what it is. And the only thing I notice is that I'm not thinking a lot. I'm just feeling, and there's a little more clarity in the space. But I can't quite integrate with the force there inside of me. It's like, well, what is that?
Well, just cherish it. You don't have to name it.
I mean, like, the fact that I'm not thinking is a blessing all by itself.
Yeah, that's good enough. Just cherish it. You know, you don't have to, the mind doesn't have to figure it out. It's, you know, it's simple.
There's a couple of, the first insight that I had, well, I haven't ever done all the practices that you gave in a day. And so there's this part of me that struggles with the not being good enough, which is an old story of mine. But then I had a chance to have an email interaction with Shams, and in the middle of the email interaction, I didn't say anything to Shams. I really appreciated what he said to me. It was very helpful. I was trying to figure out what I was supposed to do, what exactly was the homework. I was kind of confused with all, because I wasn't here at the very end.
Mm-hmm.
And Shams was able to articulate pretty clearly what the assignment was, and it had the sense of, oh, he's the good boy. And then I realized, not connected to you, this is not connected, that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I do it all, or if I don't do it all. I could still be caught in the, oh look, I'm good. Oh, I'm not good. So the story's like the same, it's not helpful, that part. So I have that's just an awareness that I'm working with, and I struggle with where the traction of the practice needs to sit most squarely in my life and really have traction. But the place that happens the best is that we have an ongoing discussion in the East Bay Agathas conversation. And about a week ago, this is specific to Rakib. We read about Rakib and people talked about Rakib, and there was something that came up about how that was the loving attention that one would have toward a sleeping baby. And I realized that I have this dog that I got in July, who was a rescue, who had been neglected and abused, and who's afraid of everything. When I took him outside the first time, I didn't know what he was going to be afraid of. He was afraid of, it was trash day. He was afraid of every trash can. And every person in Berkeley, every house in Berkeley has 4 trash cans. And then he's afraid of a Snickers wrapper on the sidewalk, or an empty bottle discarded somewhere, a noise, a hammer, somebody's hammering, and at first I felt like I was in a war zone, and over time I began to have kind of a meta way. When I walk out the door, it's like, okay, where are the obstacles? And of course, when the dog has a hard time, I go back and repeat it 3 or 4 times until he's like, okay, I can get by. That day we went by trash cans like 500 times because he needed to see they weren't going to hurt him. So now he's really relaxing. But the difference for me is that I can't take a walk without having this whole concentration. And that, in talking about Rakib, I realized this is how I connect with the wazifa practices, are that where I have felt that energetically, and that loving attention to the whole space and working with the difficult space, I can do it with my dog. And I can, because he's a really sweet dog, he's just terribly wounded. Well, we're all like that. And so it's that, then so to look at in my life in that place where I can be loving and compassionate and gentle and patient and repetitive, and it's okay, and we get what we get today, and this is, because that's, the dog didn't come to me. He just came to me. The dog is who the dog is. And all I can give him is loving support. And when we read and we had the discussion in class, and I got that that's what the quality of Rakib is, oh my God, that's already in my life. Then I just have to connect with the fact that it's already there. It's not something I have to go make up or figure out. There's some archetypal thing from the God, you know. It's like, and it felt intimate and present, and I'm doing it all the time. I just didn't know to give it a name.
Yeah, right, yeah.
So it was very helpful. It's very helpful sometimes to have that process, the discourse process around a particular quality or issue, because the insights of my friends who are my beloved community, they lift me up when I'm caught in the denseness of my own practice. And so we started February, and now here it is April, and this is the first time I felt Rakib. But I felt it, and I really got it. And so I really appreciate the fact that we had this context to be the work in progress together, because that's what transforms me. I can't do it by myself, and this is how. And so I'm grateful for all the ways that we're communicating and connecting, because that's how I'm able to do any of the work at all, I think.
Okay, thank you all for sharing, and I'm open to more.